Okay, hi guys. So today we're going to talk about outlining and why outlining is important for public speaking. And really, the reason that you need an outline is because it's going to be the architecture or the structure of which you're going to format your speech around. It's going to hold your speech together. It's going to kind of hold your audience's hand as you go through your speech. And it's going to allow us to kind of key in and know where you're going. So what are the parts of an outline? Now, we talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about spigots, how to design or craft your speech. And so let's talk about each part of the outline a little more in depth. I know you guys had a chance to work through this in your homework online, and so let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. First, your introduction. Now you guys should all know, because we talked about what the parts of an introduction are. And so obviously we're going to be grabbing the audience's attention. You're going to have a link to the first main point within your introduction. You're also going to have an audience credibility statement, as well as significance, why they should care about their speech. Next, the body. It should look exactly like this. So your format should have Roman numeral 1, first main point. That should be the topic sentence. And then you should have your subpoints underneath these. Now next week we're going to be talking about what types of material each of these subpoints should contain, so what types of sources you should be using. Next, in between your first main point and your second main point, you should be having links. And we'll talk about more specifically what those transitions should look like in the next couple of slides. Your conclusion. We all know what a conclusion should be, so we should restate our ideas, we should review our main points, we should restate our central idea, also known as a thesis statement, right? And then you're going to have a wow statement at the end. So that's going to be your clincher. It's going to summarize. You should not end your speech with a thank you, but rather something for your audience to think about. Okay, your source pages. Now, in my class, I require APA. That's just what social scientists use. MLA is going to be more for English and humanities, but for this class, I want you to use APA. And source formatting, there should be a link under content on D2L on how to do that. Please email me if you have any questions about that. Okay, so how can you create an effective outline? So first we're going to start, again, right back to our developing our speech, our spigots. So we're going to start with a topic, develop our specific purpose from that, and our central idea from that. So this will help you learn the speech, engage the length of it, and obviously use all of these at the top of your outline as a title and framing of the speech. So I want to see this at the beginning of every single outline that you turn in from now on for the next speeches. So your biography speech, you should have your topic, who the person you're speaking is. Your specific purpose is going to be to inform my audience about this person's life, whichever person that you so choose. And then your central idea is going to be your thesis statement, right? So it's going to be something along the lines of, some of you may know this about people, scratch that. Your central idea could be, today I'm going to inform you about the times and trials of Martin Luther King Jr., something like that. And then you would go more specifically into your preview of your main points in these three ways: his early life, his civil rights days, and his legacy now, maybe after his death. Okay, in outlines I want you to use, in your formal outline that you're going to be turning in, I want you to use full sentences. Now your working outline is going to be different. We talked about that last week. But for your formal outline, full sentences, everything that you want to say. Now, whether or not you actually do say that in your speech is okay, but I want to know that you can write a speech and you can practice it. That's what I want to see you do. So this is incorrect, and this is correct. So English soccer played 1823 in rugby. No. While playing soccer in 1823, an English soccer player got frustrated and picked up the ball and started running with it, creating the sport of rugby. That's a full sentence. That's what I want to see in your outlines. Cover one issue at a time. So if your main point, the city of Jackson needs to institute a plan to decrease the number of pigeons, so that would be your first main point and your claim, and then each of your subpoints should be separated out very clearly within your outline. Okay, so developing the introduction, we've talked about this. Just to reiterate, always start with your attention getter. Don't start with anything else. Don't start with introducing yourself. It should, first words out of your mouth, attention getter. Then we're going to move on to the relevance to the audience. Then you're going to have a credibility material. Why are you a credible person for your next biography speech? You've done the research. Demonstrate that you've done the research and you know what you're talking about. And then lastly, preview the speech. Like I said, your biography most likely will lend itself to a chronological or historical approach. So from their early days to the central period of their life and beyond. And if they're still alive, what they're doing now. Develop the conclusion. So again, then you're going to go your summary statement. So overall, we've talked about this, this, and this. Audience response statement, what you should be looking forward, or what your audience should be taking away from your speech. And then a wow statement. Join me for some football. If your speech is about football. Okay. Using the correct outline format, so you're going to be distinguishing your main points with Roman numerals, and then you're going to use a capital A for your first subpoint, and if you're going to have another subpoint of subpoint A, then you're going to use a 1 and then a lowercase a and b for subpoints underneath that. And you guys had a little bit of practice with that in your outlining homework, so I want to see you including that in the working outlines that you're going to be bringing to me next week. And then make sure again that they're indented if they're subpoints underneath. And you should be easily able to do this type of formatting in Microsoft Word. It's not that challenging. If you guys have questions about that, you can bring them up to me next week. And then we're going to be using balanced main points. So again, for example, your specific purpose up here, to inform my audience about the National Football League, is going to be your specific purpose, not your thesis statement, your specific purpose. And then you're going to be developing balanced main points off of that. So, for example, a brief history of the game of football grounds, the evolution of the NFL. First main point. Second main point, the National Football League has come a long way since its beginning. Third main point, today the NFL has a unique organizational setup. So again, this is a chronological format, and it's very evenly dispersed. You're going to have even amounts of information throughout your speech. It's not going to be heavy on one and less on another. And then you're going to check main points for subordination. So do your subordinating points actually fit underneath your main point? Does it make logical sense to place that supporting material underneath? Then we want to know, are there connections between subpoints A and B? So, for example, the city of Jackson needs to institute a plan to decrease the number of pigeons, since each year thousands of pigeons flock to the city. Again, the city of Jackson needs to institute a plan to decrease the number of pigeons, since pigeons spread disease. Make sure that these connections make sense. The claim that you're making is supported by your subpoint. And then test connections between each subpoint and its subpoints. So pigeons spread disease because they carry germs that affect humans. Again, connecting. Good. Plan out formal links. Some of you did this really well in your kind of narrative speeches. Some of you need some improvement. So let's talk about this. You should be writing out each transition between your main points. Formal links help make transitions less jarring. It helps audience see connections through the claims that you're making and to your overall thesis. So in this example, the link, now that we have the information about the National Football League established, referencing this first link, let's look at the structure of the NFL today. And so then you're going to go right into your third point. And this can be really, really helpful. It helps kind of hold your audience's hand as you're speaking. Obviously, I'm expecting you to be able to use proper citations. Some of you, this might be the first time you're using APA. It's just a different formatting style than MLA. You'll be able to do it. Again, you're going to, next week we'll talk more in depth about how to do oral citations. But in your outline, I'm also expecting you to have a reference page on this next one and to use proper in-text citations, which means any information that is not your own, paraphrased or direct quotation, needs to be properly cited, which within your outline. So, according to Dave Omnisky and PJ Harry in Football Made Simple, A Spectator's Guide, football is actually adaptations made to two different sports. And this should actually have parentheses with the year after it. So what are the different types of outlines? And I'm going to kind of run through this because we talked about it. For next week, I will expect you to have a working outline prepared so we can do some workshopping in class. So for your biography speech, you should be formulating and recording your topic, specific purpose, and central idea. You should have this set out for next week. And then you should start creating your potential main points as questions. Now, you can do this in questions if you want to for this working outline, or you can have declarative statements if you're pretty sure you know the direction that you're going. So, what is fair trade chocolate? Why is chocolate an issue? Where can you purchase products for fair trade? Now, your working outline, you're going to start gathering information, and then you're going to start developing your preparation outline. And this is going to have longer and more detailed points. It's going to give you the proper format in which you want to have in your formal outline, and then you're going to start using declarative sentences. Okay, so I have these facts, I know what main points I'm going to be building, and it helps you kind of to structure your speech. Your delivery outline, this is actually going to be done after your formal outline, so it's going to have a very tight structure, but you're going to be eliminating most of the details. So you're going to be extemporaneously speaking, but you're going to be able to use this and reference it during your speech. So you're going to have, if you need specific quotes or citations, you're going to have that written down so you can look off of as you're speaking. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more in depth about some words that we can use to signal to our speakers that we're transitioning to another point. Some of you may be familiar with this in your writing English classes, but we need to be incorporating this in our speaking. It's even more important in our speaking because we don't have necessarily visuals to cue off of. So the first type is a time transition, and some examples are, now that we have, in the future, meanwhile, later. These can be really helpful within a chronological type of speech. So for these biography speeches, time transitions, really good to use. Viewpoint transitions, so this is compare, contrast, or demonstrating a view. Conversely, on the other hand, although, but. Connecting transitions, this is really good with topical types of organizational strategies. Also another, moreover, not only, but also great examples. Concluding transitions, this is obviously what you're going to be using to signal your conclusion to your audience. So therefore, thus, as a result, finally, in conclusion, to summarize. Signposts. I love these. I think they are really great to kind of hold your audience's hand as you're speaking. I want to see these incorporated in your speech. First, second, third, then your audience knows exactly where you're going. Okay, now that you already gave me the preview, now you're on the third point, so I know you're going to be going into that conclusion. Some other examples: argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, my first reason, my second reason. Internal previews and internal reviews can be really, really helpful. An example of one of these, there are many reasons we need universal health care. However, I would like to focus on a universal system that would decrease the numbers of uninsured citizens, improve the access to proper care for those already insured, and help regulate the cost of care. So this is just an internal preview. And if you're giving a really, really long, kind of convoluted, complex speech, I would say that these can be placed throughout, not necessarily only in your introduction, but for the purposes of this class, you're not speaking for a very long period of time, so your internal preview is mainly going to just be in your introduction and just be in your conclusion. But you can structure these throughout if it's longer. Again, internal review, like mini conclusions, these will show your audience where you have been in your speech. So now that we've covered this, this, and this, this is holistically what I want you to take out of this speech. You can also combine the internal reviews and previews with a transition. And I should be seeing this in your speech. So now that we've discussed the evolution of football and the establishment of the NFL, we can move on to considering this. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about how you properly cite. Again, for this next biography speech, I want to see this in-text citation in your speech. So Smith, Baker, and Jones, 1990. Now, obviously, that's not how you're going to be doing the oral citation, but you need to properly cite it, just so you're giving credit where it's due. It's not your thoughts, your ideas, your facts, your statistics, so you need to give credit to the original source and author. Okay, source page. You're going to have not a works cited, it's going to be referenced. And then just again, you're going to be using this is actually not correct. That's not a correct APA, but I will give you the APA pages. I wonder why it's not correct on my PowerPoint. But again, the title is going to say references. It should be double spaced according to APA, and there should be a hanging indent. All right, so instead of doing this in class, this is what I prepared for you in class. You are going to be going off of page 144 in your textbooks. And instead of developing a concept map, I want you to develop your working outline, because next week we're going to have a little workshop, and then you should be ready to go and practicing to present the following week your biography speeches. All right, so let's move on to the ethics of public speaking. And I just have a quick discussion. It's a very short chapter within your book, but I think it's a very important point to make as being responsible, ethical public speakers. So the ethics of public speaking, and I want you to kind of think about these as I'm going through, and it's going to help you fill out that ethical dilemma worksheet that I emailed to you. So first, speaker responsibility. You have a responsibility as a public speaker to be well-researched and well-practiced. I know you've all sat through classes where you felt like the professor wasn't prepared, and you know, it's a waste of your audience's time. It's not fair to them. So also being knowledgeable, being credible, building that confidence in your audience of you as a speaker, that's important. So I want to see you guys doing that and demonstrating to me that you have knowledge of the topic that you're talking about. Avoiding ethnocentrism. Now, we talked about ethnocentrism. And that's really looking at the world only through your own lens and kind of stereotyping others based on their differences. So we shouldn't assume that our group or culture is better than all others just because other cultures are different. We should include and think about things from other people's perspectives based on their cultural understandings. We need to use reliable evidence, logic, and reasoning. We're going to talk a little bit more about logical fallacies and things like that when we get to our persuasive speeches. But again, if you're using credible sources, which we're going to talk about next week, and you're using a clear organizational pattern, checking if those subpoints match up, then you shouldn't have an issue. Remember what Aristotle says, the least initial deviation from the truth is multiplied later 1,000-fold. So we need to be cognizant of that. We need to be aware that language is powerful, right? I'm always talking about being a passionate speaker, getting your audience energized and excited. But we also need to be aware that using overly emotional appeals can be unethical. Your book talks about Hitler's speech to the youth of Germany. And it's a scary thing, right? That whole wars have been started and genocides have been started just through the use of rhetoric and public speaking. And so as public speakers, we need to be aware of the power that we're wielding when we're giving a speech. So watch overly emotional or offensive language. Citing our sources, again, we need to be responsible. Plagiarism is unacceptable as a public speaker, so that means we need to be orally citing where we got our information. Oral citations also help us to build our credibility and ethos, and so this is something that we should be practicing as good public speakers. Plagiarism definition, intentionally or unintentionally, use of all or a portion of words, ideas, or illustrations created by someone else without giving proper credit. Blatant plagiarism, speakers take an entire speech or documents and try to pass it off as their own, or no citation plagiarism, failure to give credit to a specific part of their speech that has been taken from other sources. None of these are acceptable. No citation plagiarism. An excuse is not, I didn't know. You need to be aware of what is proper citation, whether or not you're paraphrasing information or you're citing it word for word. Next, respect others' freedom of expression. So I really encourage you to have an open forum in here, and we should challenge each other and kind of hash out ideas with critical thinking and logical reasoning. That is great, but imposing your own viewpoints on others and attacking them is not the way that you're going to get your point across. It's actually going to make them go more towards polarity. So they're going to go more towards an extreme viewpoint rather than come closer to your viewpoint through discussion and argumentation. So what you really, and research has shown that in groups, if you discuss really debated, highly emotional issues, oftentimes you're just going to push those people further away from where you want them to go. So they're going to hold on more tightly to those value, beliefs, attitudes. So a better way to do that is maybe to play a devil's advocate or ask questions of your audience to kind of think or rethink about the way that they view certain issues. That's a better way to go about it. And always acknowledge that I'm just presenting information to you and you have the ability to make your own decision. Okay, and so this is an activity we're going to save for next time, but I do want you to go through that worksheet based on what I've discussed today and fill out those answers of scenarios. So what ethical principle are they violating with each one, and discuss in what ways they can maybe fix it. And we'll talk about it in class next time. So next time I want you to read chapters 13, 9, and 10, discussion board number 3, and then bring your working biography outline. So make sure that you do all 3 of these things. It's not optional. It will be counted in your participation grade. And I hope you guys are enjoying your Wednesday without me. I'll see you next week.